Hello viewers, I'm your host Lipakshi Khurana with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. Despite recent rapid geopolitical upheavals, India has stayed steadfast in its commitment to the principle of people before power. At a time when many forecast an increasingly bipolar world and when primetime television is devoted to the possibility of a Cold War, India has reaffirmed its support for the dialogue and diplomacy approach. Let's see how India is proving most effective during these uncertain and trying times.
From Russia to the West, from landlocked European countries to the Horn of Africa, from the Gulf region to island nations in Asia, India's pro-peace, pro-people policy is garnering praise and is proving to be productive and successful under the current geopolitical circumstances. India has remained committed to placing the needs of its citizens above any type of allegiance to a specific nation or group, even in the face of mounting global pressure to choose sides. India's purchase of Russian oil at competitive rates in the past few weeks, especially after global crude oil prices soared in the backdrop of disrupted supply chains, is a clear example of how India prioritizes its people's needs above all else. Energy prices in India have remained relatively steady despite the global economic crisis because of such actions. India has continued to stress its stance of peace and dialogue to end hostilities that have divided the world. In fact, India has not only maintained its relationships with both the West and Russia, but these relationships have been consistently improving as well. Recent statements from both the United States and Russia are clear evidence of India's strong and secure relationships with the two countries.
The partnership between our countries, between India and the United States, is simply one of the most consequential in the world. It's vital to addressing virtually every global challenge that our people face, whether it's health security, climate change, food security, upholding a free and open international order, to name just a few. Over the past years, we have made real progress in elevating that partnership bilaterally.
It has been underpinned by a very close ally relationship over many decades. We've never had any difficult issues. We've always supported each other. And that is happening right now, and I'm sure this will be the case in the future as well.
While India has grown to be one of the major forces in world diplomacy and commerce, it has never sought to use its power to gain an unfair advantage. India has been cautious to follow local laws and avoid abusing its position, even in the smallest of the countries where it has invested. Apart from defending its sovereignty, India has never used any form of force to achieve its objectives and goals. India's centuries-old principle of ahimsa, or non-violence, continues to guide its foreign policy even today. Smaller countries recently hailed India for its unwavering assistance even during their most trying times. Some have even said that it has been India's continuous support that has helped their people to survive during the COVID crisis. At the United Nations, Mexico proposed to create a panel to broker peace between Russia and the Ukraine and suggested that Prime Minister Modi be included on the panel.
We are close friends. We are strategic partners. We are not allies. So when he talks of independence of foreign policy, that is very true. Independence also means that when even a close friend does something which we are not comfortable with, we gently and politely and respectfully point it out.
Observers have noted that Prime Minister Modi's proposed inclusion was primarily motivated by India's long-standing approach of people before power and dialogue and diplomacy. India's primary objective is on improving its economy and standard of living of its own people, who comprise 1/6 of the global population. Trade agreements and health and climate issues have dominated nearly all of India's discussions with other countries and groupings. And as India prepares to tackle the G20 presidency later this year, observers predict that these topics will continue to be at the forefront of India's agenda. India's consistent diplomatic position has also motivated other countries to toe New Delhi's line and adopt similar approaches. Respect for India around the world continues to grow as India maintains its policy of friendship to all, malice to none, and support for humanity.
Moving on, several people in Sri Lanka held demonstration against the government and demanded justice for their loved ones who had disappeared during the country's civil war. Holding photographs, black flags and burning wood torches, the protesters said they had not received any satisfactory response into the prolonged probe post-decades-long war.
Clad in a black sari, Arumuga Lakshmi boarded a bus in northern Sri Lanka filled with other people headed for the same destination. A protest site to demand action and justice for their loved ones who had disappeared during the country's civil war. In the northern province's town of Kilinochchi, some 70 kilometers north of her home in Vavuniya, Lakshmi marched among the families of people who disappeared during the war. Holding photographs, black flags and burning wood torches, the protesters wound their way through the town under the watchful eye of local police.
எங்க பிள்ளைங்களை நினைச்சு நாங்க வந்திருக்கிறோம். 2 பிள்ளைங்க எனக்கு காணாம போயிடுச்சு.
During the brutal 26-year civil war between the Sri Lankan government and a militant group, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, Lakshmi's daughter Ranjini Thirui went missing in 2004, followed 3 years later by her son Sivakumar. Few, if any, have been accounted for, and government officials have offered varying details of what happened to them, which is still unknown despite investigative efforts. The instances of enforced disappearances in Sri Lanka rank among the world's highest, with human rights group Amnesty International estimating them to number between 60,000 and 100,000 since the late 1980s. But the government's Office on Missing Persons, set up in 2017, said it had just received 14,965 civilian reports of disappearances from 1981 onwards. Years after the war ended in 2009, families such as Lakshmi's and the hundreds of women who marched with her in the former LTTE stronghold of Kilinochchi in August still seek their missing relatives and answers. Pressure is growing for the government to act.
வெறுப்பு வந்து நான் சாகிறதுக்கெல்லாம் போனேன். நிறைய தடவை செய்துட்டேன். இப்போ இந்த சிஸ்டர் தானே என்னை கூப்பிடும். என்னட்ட கதை இப்போ கோயிலுக்கு இறக்கி முதல் வந்து தட்டி கதைச்சு வேட்டுட்டு தூக்கம் போட போனேன். மருந்து குடிக்கணும். இந்த பிரிவு வந்து எனக்கு தாங்கவே முடியும். இப்போதும் சரியான மனவேதனையோட தான் வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறேன்.
In a report on October 4th, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said the office and other steps taken by the government had fallen short of the tangible results expected by victims and other stakeholders. Sri Lanka says it remains committed to pursuing tangible progress on human rights through domestic institutions.
Moving on, Pakistan has recently been removed from the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force, the world's terrorism financing watchdog. The Islamic nation was added to the grey list in 2018 because of strategic deficiencies in countering money laundering and terrorist financing. Will the world see a new Pakistan, one committed to ending terrorism within its territory? Has Pakistan really taken adequate steps to curb terror financing? Or has it simply completed the right bureaucratic exercises to be removed from the grey list? Join us as we give you answers to these critical questions.
Indian security forces carrying out anti-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir are a regular phenomenon. Indian security forces have been constantly engaged in a fight against terrorists from Pakistan on a mission to wreak havoc and create terror in Jammu and Kashmir. These terrorists are trained, financed, armed, and radicalized in Pakistan, who recently tasted success after the FATF removed it from its grey list. The FATF, by earlier putting Pakistan on its grey list, had limited resources available to the country to increase its financing, which often found its way into the hands of terrorists in the country. After its two-day plenary in Paris, the FATF declared that Pakistan had fully completed the 34-point action plan it had earlier established. However, experts say that this is simply a statistical, bureaucratic exercise which Pakistan has successfully finalized.
This is one of those statistical bureaucratic exercises where if you tick a certain checklist, it doesn't matter what you've done. It just shows that you've somehow controlled terrorism and therefore, terror funding, and therefore you're out of the list. Whereas we know that Pakistan would have found alternate routes of funding that same terror. This is a classic case of how viruses tend to outpace antibiotics. This is one of those cases where slow bureaucracies will never be able to compare with the nimbleness of terror organizations and terror funding.
The United States has identified Pakistan as a base of operations and target of numerous armed, non-state terrorist groups, some of which have existed since the 1980s. According to the Congressional Research Service, notable terrorists and other groups operating in Pakistan are of 5 broad but non-exclusive types. They include globally oriented, Afghanistan-oriented, India-oriented, domestically oriented, and sectarian, i.e. anti-Shias. The U.S. State Department's Country Reports on Terrorism 2020, which were released in December 2021, note that Pakistan did not take steps under its domestic authorities to prosecute terrorist leaders residing in Pakistan. The reports further noted that Pakistan made limited progress on the most difficult aspects of its 2015 National Action Plan to counter terrorism.
Pakistani deep state has managed to build a worldwide infrastructure of, I would say, organized crime. And they are beneficiaries of this kind of thing. I don't think internal institutions of Pakistan are in a position to restrain them. They have managed to brainwash their whole generations, and they believe that Pakistani dabbling with terrorism and organized crime is something which enhances the glory of Islam. A very strong pocket of Islamic radicalism they have managed to create where no questions are asked.
While Pakistan remained on the FATF's grey list, several top terrorists, including Hafiz Saeed, Sajid Mir, Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakhvi, Masood Azhar, and Abdul Rahman Maki, were still able to successfully hide. There is a general consensus among security experts that many of these UN-designated terrorists run sham charity organizations, which act as a facade to collect funds, which ultimately are used to promote terrorism and Islamic radicalization. These terrorists enjoy the patronage of Pakistan's security agencies, who use these outfits as their proxies. The United States and India, both victims of terrorism, are trying hard to eliminate terrorism by sanctioning its perpetrators. Both the US and India are making efforts to blacklist these terrorists under the 1267 Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee of the UN Security Council.
Many members of the Security Council, including the United States, have adopted our own sanctions against the terrorists behind these attacks. But our accountability efforts are more effective when we act together, which is why we've worked with India to put forward nominations to designate several terrorists through the UN 1267 committee.
Unfortunately, China, an all-weather friend of Islamabad, places holds and blocks on bids by India and its allies to list Pakistan-based terrorists on the list. Despite obstacles created by China and Pakistan, India's fight against terrorism and its perpetrators blazes forward.
And time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
This glossy and beautiful tableware is made up of Mirai wood, also known as future wood. It is mixture of biodegradable plastic and waste wood that is used in making baseball bats. This project has been jointly developed by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government and a local company. Tokyo Metropolitan Industrial Technology Research Institute is supporting the private sector's technological advancements. By conducting tests, research, dissemination, and technical support related to industrial technology, the institute aims at improving lives. To organize the biodegradable plastic project, it made public recruiting easier. Ryoka Sangyo was nominated as a partner. It is a company that develops products for plastic food containers and medical equipment, and it has high-quality processing technology.
遼河産業はですね、50年以上ですね、プラスチックの生産に関わっております。その中で世の中脱炭素ということでプラスチックの削減というところがいろいろ取り沙汰されております。で我々もですね、もう50年以上プラスチックやってますんで、その環境素材というものの開発ですね、これを着手しておりました。土産技研さんの公募がありました。ミライウッドという環境素材ですね、これの開発の始まりです。
Ryoka Sangyo was a pure plastic manufacturer. In this project, Ryoka Sangyo tried to mix two materials, biodegradable plastic and natural wood. As a result, the wood material rate rose to 51% and the plant-derived rate is 73%. It is admired as successful completion, overcoming the difficulty of technology. Mirai wood or future wood products can be manufactured by an existing plastic molding facility. It is available to mass produce by mold, but it is defined wooden product. There are many kinds of tableware containers. Tableware sets of plate, cup, chopsticks and spoon are very suitable for camping leisure. The traditional Japanese crafts, lacquerware and tableware decorated by traditional methods have a beautiful and delicate appearance. Administrative leadership and the private sector's cutting-edge technology help in realizing real sustainable development goals in society. Motorbike giant Yamaha Motors conducted a test flight of its first aeroplane at Fujikawa Gliding Field in Shizuoka Prefecture. This test flight was undertaken with the cooperation of Shinmeiwa Industries. Shinmeiwa manufactured the airplane and Yamaha Motor provided the 499cc engine. The engine that Yamaha Motors used on this airplane was modified according to the needs of the airplane. Nevertheless, Yamaha's existing technology made it possible to modify this engine according to the needs of an airplane.
耐久試験等をこれまでやってきて、初めてのフライトということで、緊張もしましたけれども、今までやってきたことの成果がしっかり出たかなと思っています。はい、それに対してはチームの皆さんのおかげかなと思って今はちょっと喜んでおります。弊社は無人機のドローンであるとかヘリコプターの方はすでに空の領域で進出させてもらっているんですけど、有人機っていう点においては、今回初めてっていうところになってくると思います。ただ、今回の目的としましてはそういった我々のコンパクトで軽量でハイパワーなエンジンがどういったところに活かせるかっていうところが目的で、課題に対する解決策とか検討していくっていうのが今回の目的ですので、それに対しては成功に終わったのかなというふうに思っています。
Yamaha Motor has established itself as a motorbike giant. but its challenge spirit is expanding to 4 vehicles, a car, an unmanned helicopter, a drone and an airplane. This project began with discussions between Yamaha Motor, which is always thinking of new ways to utilize its engines, and Shinmeiwa Industry, which owns an aeroplane for research and development. Yamaha Motor had a difficult time with endurance testing to match an existing engine for an airplane, and technologically advanced technology firms that has made its mark all over the world.
Moving on, India is a diverse country with different cultures. Here in India, people worship all forms of nature. One of them is the Chhath Puja. Hindu devotees, especially women, keep the 4-day fasting for Chhath Puja, or the sun god festival, in parts of eastern and northern India. Environmentalists have claimed that the festival of Chhath is one of the most eco-friendly religious festivals in the world. Let's take a look at this year's festivities.
With its origins in prehistoric Vedic times, Chhath Puja, a Hindu festival observed predominantly in northern India, holds immense significance for married women who observe fast and make religious offerings to the sun god. The sun is considered the god of energy and life force in Hinduism. Though dedicated to the sun god, devotees also worship his younger sister Chhati Maiya, commonly known as goddess Usha, during the 4-day festival. On the first day, also known as Nahai Khai, devotees take a bath, particularly in the river Ganga, and bring the holy water of the river to make prasad at home.
ये सबसे बड़ी बात ये है कि ये भगवान घर में सुख समृद्धि उत्तम स्वास्थ्य के लिए किया जाता है ये पर्व, और कहा जाता है कि उगते सूर्य को लोग सिर प्रणाम करते हैं, डूबते सूर्य को। ये बहुत बड़ा एक संदेश देता है इस पर्व के माध्यम से कि सिर्फ उगते हुए, मतलब कि जो राइज कर रहा है सिर्फ उसी का नहीं, जो पतन की ओर जाता है उसका भी एक दिन उत्थान होता है, एक बहुत बड़ा संदेश है।
On the second day, also known as Kharna, devotees make offerings that comprise kheer, puris, chapatis and bananas, besides observing fast for the whole day. The toughest is the third day. Women observe a 36-year-long rigorous fast when they do not drink even a drop of water. Devotees say the 4 days of Chhath Puja calm the mind of devotees and reduces the negative energy like hatred, fear and anger. The custom of offering prayer to the sun god is also prevalent in the Babylonian civilization and ancient Egyptian civilization. In the evening, they go to the bank of the river or pond carrying along with them dori, a basket made of bamboo sticks in which they keep the local home-prepared offerings to be made to the god.
सूरज भगवान के हम लोग पूजा करते हैं। सुबह में, काल में, शाम के छठ मैया के पूजा करते हैं। सुबह हम लोग सूरज भगवान के इंतजार करते हैं अर्घ देने के लिए। कहे तो महान हम लोग सूरज भगवान छठी मैया दोनों हैं। वह बात हम लोग के इससे बहुत बहुत भारी महान पूजा है। इस पूजा के लिए हम लोग 3 दिन के व्रत भूखने पड़ते हैं।
Chhath is considered one of the most significant and auspicious festivals of northern Bihar and in parts of the neighbouring Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand, in which devotees pray to the rising sun for the well-being and prosperity of their children and spouse. The Chhath Puja festivities, which culminate 6 days after the country celebrates Diwali, the festival of lights, took place after a 2-year coronavirus pandemic. With time, the festival has also gained popularity in metropolitan cities as people from these states migrate in large numbers to make a living.
While festivals like these keep our culture alive and prosperous by uniting people together for the sole purpose of celebration and happiness. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.